Can I write and publish a novella in 6 weeks? That's what we're going to talk about in this episode of Fiction Technician. Well, hi, hello everybody. Welcome back to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Jane Kalmus. I am a writer of historical cozy mysteries, and I talk about writing tips on this channel every week. This week is going to be a little bit different because we're going to talk about a new writing project I'm starting up. It's something for rapid release, and so we're going to talk about what the project is, why I feel so eager to release it quickly, and what are the challenges inherent in doing a rapid release. So, for a long time, I have had an idea for a little novella about a woman who travels back in time and falls in love with Philip Hamilton, the doomed son of Alexander Hamilton. If you know the history, or if you just know the musical Hamilton, then you know that Philip died when he was 18. He died in a duel about 3 years before his father, Alexander Hamilton, died in a fatal duel of his own. And to me, this has always seemed like the real tragedy of the Hamilton family. When Alexander Hamilton died, he was 49, and yes, it is tragic because he might have had more life left to him, and because he had a young family at the time. But even so, Alexander Hamilton had a life. He did his work, he had his kids. That's a legacy, and Philip Hamilton really only had a childhood. So I thought doing a book about a woman who goes back in time, aware of all this history and yet unable to stop herself from falling in love with Philip, would be a really fun way to dig into some juicy history that I just love, and a great way to spend some time with some historical personages who people have become more interested in recent years. But for a long time, there didn't seem to be any particular hurry about working on this project. I had many ideas that I really loved and hoped I would get to someday, and this was just one of them. Well, recently I learned that Lin-Manuel Miranda, the writer and director of Hamilton the Musical, is releasing a movie version of it for Disney+. So this is basically a recording of the theatrical production that they did in New York, and when that comes out, I think people are going to be really excited. I know I will. I loved the score of Hamilton, but I was never able to see it in person, so I'm going to be watching that movie on day one. And it's my hope that if I get the book up for the same release date, maybe I can catch some of that enthusiasm and have a really good book launch. Writing for rapid release comes with some pretty specific challenges, and even more so when you're writing on a topic that is currently trending. So I'm going to kind of talk about each of these challenges and what I'm doing to meet them. The first challenge I want to talk about is simply the challenge of logistics. Normally, when I start on a book, well, I'm just writing. I'm just having fun and sinking into the story, and I'm not thinking much about the publication process. That's absolutely not going to work in this circumstance, because in order to have everything I need for the book to look professional, I'm going to need the help of other professionals in my industry. One of the most important things I'm going to need is a cover, and that work really needs to get underway right now. So I found a cover artist who I'm so excited to work with, but in order for her to do the work, I need to provide her all the details, and those details really won't be subject to change. So I've given her a title and an overall concept for the cover and told her the basic details of how the major characters should look. And from now on, whatever happens in my writing process, I am going to have to write to that cover. Another thing that needs to get scheduled right now is an editor. Really, 6 weeks out is honestly a little late to be scheduling an editor because editors are busy and because their work really can't be completed instantaneously. So I need to get in contact with somebody. I need to communicate with them about my deadline so that they know when I need their edits, and hear from them when they need the draft to make that happen. And I need to be thinking about formatting. I'm lucky in that my husband is able to handle the formatting for me. But if we were not able to deal with this in-house, well, then that's another professional I'd need to be thinking about contacting right now. And lastly, now is also the time to think about marketing and reach out to people who might be willing to give me reviews. I have to admit that my marketing for this book is going to be a little limited. It's going to be mostly my own channels, this YouTube channel, my Instagram, my mailing list, and maybe that seems a little counterintuitive. After all, the whole reason I am working so hard to put this book out quickly is to catch that wave of enthusiasm for Hamilton and use that wave to kind of build my audience. But here's the thing. Another aspect of writing for a rapid release with a inflexible deadline is you gotta make choices. You have to choose what you can do and what you can cut. If sales were really the most important aspect of this project to me, then perhaps I'd have to do fewer drafts so I could do more marketing. But that's just not where my heart is. What is most important to me is to have a book I can be proud of. And so I'm putting my time there, and marketing is what I am willing to sacrifice to get it. Another challenge I want to talk about is the difficulty in writing to a topic that is already popular. So I want to kind of honor the nostalgia and love people have for the musical while differentiating my book and making sure that it is its own thing. I have to assume that most of the audience for my book is going to be familiar with Hamilton the Musical, and so they're going to come to my book with some expectations already. One way I could have conceived of this book would be as a woman who travels back in time and falls in love with Alexander Hamilton. In a way that would be even more exciting. It would get us closer to the man himself, and it would let us experience some really interesting historical events like the Revolutionary War or the founding of America. But the problem with that is that one of the things people really loved about the musical was the relationship between Hamilton and his wife, Elizabeth Schuyler Hamilton. And so if I were to do anything to break those two up, well, I feel like I'd be turning off a lot of the readers who would be most interested in this material. I'm not trying to imply that my Hamilton and Eliza should be just like Miranda's Hamilton and Eliza. Anytime you write about a historical personage, well, you're really creating a character. You're not writing about that person, you're writing about your particular interpretation or version of them. And my Hamilton and Eliza are going to differ in a few important ways. It's also important to keep in mind that I am not writing for the audience of the Hamilton musical. I am writing always for my ideal reader, and those are the people who love cozy mysteries. It's easy with a project like this where you're trying to draw in a wide audience to start thinking that you're supposed to be drawing in as wide an audience as possible, but it's subtly but importantly different. I'm not looking to draw in those readers who would not otherwise read me. I'm looking to draw in the people who would read me, the lovers of cozy mysteries, who might not otherwise find me in the vast ocean that is digital publishing. For that reason, I really cannot neglect the mystery aspects of the book, or get so caught up in Hamilton enthusiasm myself that I fail to play to my best strengths, which are romance, humor, and tricky little mysteries. The last challenge I want to talk about is the challenge of setting this project up for potential longevity. So one of the great things about a little novella project like this is that you can toss it out there and see if anybody bites. If it becomes popular, you can follow it up with more material, and if it doesn't, well, you can move on and know that the time that you invested in the novella was minimal. But let's go ahead and assume that what I want to happen happens and that the book sells well. In that case, I'm going to want to write a sequel, and I want to make sure the work I'm doing now will support that effort. For me, setting a series up for longevity is mainly about a few things. First, I need to make sure that the mechanics of my world make sense. So my time travel needs to add up and ideally provide intriguing story possibilities. Also, I need to invest some time in creating characters that both I and the audience will want to hang around with again. For me, that's about creating cool conflicts in between the characters. I'm writing about a mystery-solving modern woman in the 1800s, so I feel like finding those conflicts isn't going to be too difficult. And it's about creating great comic perspectives for the characters. The comic perspective is my favorite tool for creating characters that aren't jokesters but still make us laugh consistently. If you haven't seen my video on that, I'm going to link it in the description below. And it's one of my earlier videos, so the production's a little rough, but I stand by the content. It is a great tool for writing humorous characters. And lastly, I want to be thinking a little bit about my supporting cast. So I do have a few walk-on characters in this novella, people like the clerks who worked in Hamilton's legal practice or the many, many, many relatives of Elizabeth Schuyler Hamilton. And it doesn't hurt to do a little bit of foundational work on them to make sure that In books to come, they may be capable of generating their own drama. If this sounds like a cool project, please smash the like button. And if you want to hear more about it, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell icon for notifications. I'm going to be vlogging about this project all month, and I hope to have some really interesting insights about writing for rapid release to share with all of you. Tech out.